The song cost her nothing, but it saved a life worth $50 billion. Maya, 9 years old and blind, couldn't see the tears on the rich boy's face. She had no home, no money, and no sight, but she gave him her melody anyway, every afternoon for 6 months. No one asked her to. No one paid her. She just did it because she heard his heart breaking. When he left, Julian made a wild promise. "I'll build you the biggest stage in the world." She laughed, then handed him a rough, chipped wooden bird she had carved by touch. 20 years vanished. Julian became a media tyrant, spent millions searching for her, hired the best investigators, found nothing. Tonight, he'd walk into a freezing subway station in the Bronx. Maya would be there, still clutching the broken wing of a wooden bird. Neither knew they were seconds away from a collision that would shatter their worlds. Julian Thorne woke at 5 a.m. in a penthouse that cost more than the entire neighborhood he grew up in. Floor-to-ceiling glass. Manhattan stretched out below like a circuit board of gold and steel. He didn't notice. He never did. The shower steam smelled of eucalyptus and wealth. His coffee machine hummed, a $12,000 Italian import that ground beans flown in from private estates. He pressed a button and walked away before the cup filled. His closet held 50 suits, all bespoke, all black. He grabbed one without looking. The apartment was silent, always silent. No photos on the walls, no warmth, nothing that said a human being actually lived here. It looked like a museum. It felt like a tomb. His phone buzzed on the marble island. His assistant. The merger closed. Stardust Records is ours. $800 million. Julian texted back. Good. He felt nothing. Another zero. Another trophy. He walked to his home office, bypassed the safe full of cash, and unlocked the bottom drawer. Inside was a small, velvet-lined box containing a cheap, chipped wooden bird. This was the only thing that mattered. He touched the rough pine gently. 20 years old. The wood was worn smooth by his thumb. Every morning he held it. Every morning the same thought hammered in his chest. Where's she? The board meeting at 9 a.m. was a bloodbath. Julian decimated a competitor, fired 2 executives, and secured a monopoly. Applause. Handshakes. Fear in their eyes. Julian smiled, said the ruthless things, played the shark. Inside, he was drowning. His business partner, Marcus, pulled him aside after. "You okay, Jules? You look like you haven't slept in a decade." "I'm Fina. You've been fine since we started buying up those old theaters in the Bronx." "Why?" Julian tightened his tie. "Investment." Marcus studied him. "This is about the subway girl, isn't it? The ghost." Julian's eyes went cold. "Drop it. She's gone, Julian. It's been 20 years. Let go." I said drop it. Julian sat alone in his office that afternoon, the city skyline looming behind him. He opened a file on his secure server. Project Sparrow, for private investigators. 5 years. Dead ends. The last report blinked on the screen. Subject Maya, unknown. No last name. No records. Blind female. Approximate age 29. Status. Likely deceased or institutionalized. Julian slammed his laptop shut. He refused to believe it. He pulled up a map of the subway system. 12 red pins marked the stations where street performers gathered. If Maya was still alive, she was singing. That's who she was. So he bought radio stations, launched talent scouts, created reasons to be listening constantly, hoping, waiting. His phone buzzed. Reminder, charity gala at the Met tonight. 7 p.m. Julian usually skipped these. Fake smiles, fake charity. But something made him look at the GPS. The route passed the old 149th Street station, the place where it started. He typed back, "I'll go, but I'm making a stop first." He didn't know why, just a pull in his gut. The memories came unbidden. They always did when it rained. 20 years ago, he was 10. a runaway from a golden cage. His parents were in a brutal divorce, using him as ammunition. He ran to the subway to disappear. 2 weeks of hiding in maintenance closets, stealing bagels, shivering in his prep school blazer. By day 14, he was ready to jump on the tracks. He stood at the edge, the wind of the incoming train hitting his face. Then he heard it, a voice, pure, aunting, perfect. A blind girl sitting on a crate, singing to the darkness. Maya lived in a basement with an aunt who took her disability checks and left her to beg. Her clothes were rags. Her eyes were milky white, but she saw Julian better than anyone. That day at the station, Julian stepped back from the edge and sat next to her. "You're sad," she had said, not stopping her song. "How do you know? Your footsteps are heavy." Julian looked at her tin can. 3 pennies. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a gold watch his father gave him, a bribe for silence, and dropped it in her can. Maya picked it up, felt the weight, the cold metal. "It's too heavy," she whispered. "Take it back." "No," Julian said. "It's yours." "I don't want your money," Maya said, handing it back. "I want you to sit with me. You sound lonely." Julian sat. For 6 months, that dirty concrete corner was the only home he had. He described the world to her. She taught him how to listen. One day, Julian whispered, watching rats scurry on the tracks, "I'm going to take you out of here. I'll build you a stage where everyone has to be quiet and listen." Maya laughed, reaching into her pocket. "I don't need a stage, but take this." She handed him the wooden bird. "I carved it. It's a sparrow. They're small, but they survive the winter." The memory faded. Julian looked at the clock. 6:30 p.m. The gala started at 7 o'clock. He grabbed his coat, touched the wooden bird in his pocket one last time. "I'm coming, Maya." What Julian didn't know was that Maya was at the 149th Street station tonight, and she had been singing that same song, waiting for the boy with the heavy footsteps, every single night for 20 years. Julian stepped out of his armored SUV a block away from the station. The wind cut through his $5,000 cashmere coat like a knife, but he didn't button it. He needed to feel the cold. He needed to remember what freezing felt like. His driver, a massive ex-Marine named Cole, rolled down the window. "Sir, the gala is in the opposite direction. The governor is expecting you in 20 minutes. Julian didn't look back. "Tell the governor I have more important business." "Here? In the Bronx?" "Sir, this isn't safe." Julian smiled, a bitter, humorless shape. "I haven't been safe since I was 10 years old, Cole. Wait for me." He walked toward the subway entrance. The stairs were steep, descending into the mouth of the city. The air grew heavier with every step, a thick cocktail of ozone, damp concrete, and the metallic tang of old brakes. 149th Street. To the thousands of commuters rushing past him, head down and eyes glued to phones, this was just a transit point, a purgatory between work and home. But to Julian, this was a cathedral. This was the place where he had learned to breathe. He reached the bottom of the stairs. The station had changed in 20 years. The tiles were whiter, the lights brighter, harsh fluorescent tubes that buzzed like angry wasps. But the shadows were the same. He stood near the turnstiles, watching the river of humanity flow past. He felt like a ghost, a billionaire in a suit standing in a sea of exhausted nurses, construction workers, and students. He checked his watch. 6:48 p.m. If she was alive, if she was still the girl who sang to the travelers, she would be here. But the station was loud. Too loud. The screech of the arriving number 2 train was deafening. Announcements blared over the intercom. Teenagers laughed. Buskers played drums on plastic buckets. How could he possibly hear a sparrow in this hurricane? Doubt clawed at his chest. Marcus was right. He was insane. He was chasing a phantom because he was too terrified to face his own empty life. She was gone. 20 years was a lifetime. She had probably moved on, found a family, maybe regained her sight, maybe died in the system that swallowed girls like her whole. He gripped the wooden bird in his pocket so hard the sharp wing dug into his palm. "One more minute," he whispered to the tile wall. "I'll give it one more minute." He closed his eyes. He blocked out the drums. He blocked out the announcement about the delayed train. He focused. He went back to the boy he was at 10 years old, the boy who learned to listen in the dark. And then, beneath the roar, he heard it. It wasn't a song at first. It was a hum, a vibration in the air, a low, mournful melody that threaded its way through the chaos like a golden wire. Julian's eyes snapped open. His heart stopped, then restarted with a violent thud against his ribs. He knew that hum. He knew the interval, the slight dip on the third note. It was the traveler's lullaby, the song she made up when the rains came down hard and the roof of the station leaked. He turned slowly, like a man waking from a coma. He followed the sound. It was coming from the far end of the platform, near the emergency exit, tucked away in a shadow that the new fluorescent lights didn't reach. The crowd parted for him, sensing the intensity radiating off the man in the expensive suit. And there she was. Time collapsed. The 20 years, the billions of dollars, the penthouse, the pain, it all vanished in a single heartbeat. Maya. She was standing, not sitting. She looked older, yes. The baby fat was gone from her cheeks, replaced by the sharp, elegant angles of a woman who had survived on too little for too long. Her skin was ashen from the lack of sun. She wore a coat that was 3 sizes too big, a shapeless gray wool thing that looked like it had been salvaged from a donation bin. Her wild curly hair was pulled back into a severe bun, hiding the face he had memorized. But it was her. It was the way she stood, feet planted firmly apart, chin tilted up toward the ceiling as if she could see the stars through the concrete. She was singing. Her voice had deepened, matured. It wasn't the high piping of a child anymore. It was rich, textured with gravel and soul, a voice that carried the weight of 1,000 lonely nights. But nobody was listening. A businessman bumped her shoulder as he rushed past, almost knocking her over. She didn't stop singing. She just adjusted her footing. A group of kids laughed near her, mocking the way her eyes moved vacantly behind her dark glasses. She ignored them. Julian took a step forward, his legs feeling like lead. He was 10 feet away, 5 feet. He could see the details now. The frayed cuffs of her sleeves, the red, chapped skin on her knuckles. She wasn't holding a guitar or a violin. She had nothing but her voice and a white cane propped against her hip. Then he saw it. He stopped breathing. He actually stopped breathing, his lungs seizing up in his chest. Tied to the handle of her white cane, frayed and faded to a pale, dirty gray, was a strip of fabric. It was knotted tightly, worn thin by years of anxious fingers rubbing against it. But Julian recognized the weave. He recognized the faint, almost invisible pattern of the gold crest. It was his tie, the blue silk prep school tie he had taken off his neck 20 years ago, the day he ran away for the last time. It was freezing that day, a brutal February wind. Maya had been shivering, her hands turning blue. He had ripped the tie off, wrapped it around her hands, and said, "Keep this. It's magic. It'll keep you warm until I come back with the stage." She had kept it. Through the foster homes, through the streets, through 20 years of darkness, she had kept his stupid lie of a tie. Julian choked back a sob. A tear, hot and fast, escaped his eye and rolled down his cheek. He wiped it away angrily. He couldn't break down now. He stepped into her personal space. He blocked the flow of commuters. He stood directly in front of her, casting a shadow over her face. Maya stopped singing. She didn't startle. She didn't flinch. She just went still, like a deer sensing a change in the wind. She tilted her head, her ear turning slightly toward him. She sniffed the air. "You're blocking the light," she said softly. Her voice was raspy from use. "Or what passes for light down here?" Julian couldn't speak. His throat was full of glass. "Do you have a train to catch?" she asked, her voice polite but guarded. "The express is on the other track." Julian took a trembling breath. He exhaled. Maya froze. Her hand went to the tie on her cane. Her fingers clenched around it so hard her knuckles turned white. She lifted her chin higher. Her blind eyes searched the darkness, frantically trying to find the source of the sound. "That smell," she whispered. It was barely a breath. "Sandalwood and rain." Julian took one more step. He was close enough to touch her now. "An expensive soap," he choked out. The words he had said to her 20 years ago. Maya dropped her cane. It clattered to the concrete floor with a hollow smack. The tie fluttered. She didn't reach for it. Her hands came up, shaking violently, reaching out into the void between them. She looked terrified, as if she were afraid she was dreaming, as if she were afraid her mind had finally snapped. "No," she whimpered. "It's not. It can't be. It's me, Maya," Julian said, his voice breaking into 1,000 pieces. "It's the sparrow." Maya let out a sound that wasn't a word. It was a cry of pure, agonizing relief. Her hands found his chest. She felt the expensive wool of his suit. She traveled up to his shoulders, his neck, her cold fingers mapping the man he had become. Then her hands found his face. She traced his jawline. She traced the scar on his chin, the one he got falling off his bike when he was 9, the one she used to tease him about. "Julian," she sobbed, "is it real? Are you real?" "I'm real," he whispered, grabbing her hands and pressing them against his wet cheeks. "I'm here. I came back." "You came back," she repeated, her knees buckling. Julian caught her. He pulled her into him, wrapping his arms around her thin, shivering frame. He buried his face in her neck, smelling the scent of lavender soap and old dust, the smell of the station, the smell of home. They stood there, a billionaire and a beggar, clinging to each other in the middle of rush hour. The crowd flowed around them like water around stone, annoyed, indifferent, blind to the miracle happening in their midst. "I waited," she sobbed into his coat. "I waited every day. I sat on the crate until they took it away. I sat on the floor until the police made me move. I came back every single day, Julian. I knew you wouldn't lie. I knew it. I tried," Julian said, guilt crashing over him like a wave. "Maya, I tried to find you. My parents, they locked me in. They sent me away to Europe. I ran away 3 times. They hired guards. I wrote letters they never mailed. When I finally got free, when I turned 18, I came back. The crate was gone. Your aunt was gone. I spent millions looking for you. I hired everyone. They told me you were dead." Maya pulled back slightly, her hand still clutching his lapels as if he might vanish like smoke. "I wasn't dead," she said, a sad smile touching her lips. "I was just lost. After you left, my aunt, she got sick. The state took me. The system isn't kind to blind girls who age out, Julian. I bounced around. Group homes, shelters, but I always stayed close to the subway. Because I told you I'd be here. I promised." She reached down and fumbled for her cane. She lifted the tie, holding it up like a holy relic. "You said it was magic. You said it would keep me warm." Julian looked at the tattered silk. He thought about his closet full of unworn suits, his heated floors, his pointless luxury. He looked at her cracked lips and the bruise on her cheekbone. "Did it?" he asked hoarsely. "Did it keep you warm?" Maya paused. She lowered the tie. "It kept me hopeful," she whispered. "And sometimes, hope is warmer than wool." "I failed you," Julian said, the shame burning his gut. "I promised you a stage. I promised you silk dresses. And look at you. You're freezing. You're hungry. I'm not hungry anymore. she said fiercely. You're here. No. Julian shook his head. That's not enough. Not for me. He pulled back, looking at her with the intensity that would have terrified his board of directors. Do you remember the promise, Maya? The exact words. Maya nodded. You said you'd build a place where everyone has to listen. I did, Julian said. I built an empire, Maya. I own the radio stations. I own the theaters. I own the record labels. I built it all for you. Every brick, every contract, every dollar. It was all just preparation. He took her hand. Come with me. Maya hesitated. Where? I have my spot here. If I leave, the other buskers might take it. It took me 3 years to get this cornerback. The tragedy of that sentence almost brought Julian to his knees. She was worried about losing a corner of cold concrete in a subway station. You don't need the corner anymore, Julian said, his voice hard with determination. You don't need the cane. You don't need this coat. He started to unbutton his $5,000 cashmere coat. He took it off and wrapped it around her shoulders. It engulfed her, heavy and warm and smelling of him. Julian, she protested, you'll freeze. Let me freeze, he said. I deserve it for taking 20 years. He grabbed her hand again. Trust me. Do you trust me? Maya touched the collar of the coat. She smiled, and for a second, the tired woman vanished, and the 9-year-old girl returned. I trust the sparrow, she said. Then walk with me. Julian led her through the crowd. He walked slowly, matching his pace to hers. He glared at anyone who didn't move out of their way. They walked up the stairs, out of the darkness, and into the biting wind of the Bronx night. Cole, the driver, was waiting by the SUV, looking anxious. His jaw dropped when he saw his boss, shivering in just a suit jacket, leading a disheveled, blind woman by the hand. Sir, Cole asked, opening the door. Get in, Maya, Julian said gently, helping her into the warm leather interior. She gasped as the heat hit her face. She touched the seats, her fingers trembling. It feels like soft butter, she whispered. Julian climbed in beside her. Cole, he said, his voice steel. Cancel the gala. Cancel the morning meeting. Cancel everything. Where to, sir? Cole asked, looking in the rearview mirror. Julian looked at Maya. She was holding his hand with both of hers, terrified to let go. He looked at the wooden bird he had placed on the console between them. Take us to the Thorn Concert Hall, Julian said. Cole blinked. The new one? Sir, it's not open yet. It's under construction. The acoustics aren't even tested. I said take us there, Julian commanded. And call the lighting crew. Call the sound engineers. I don't care if they're sleeping. I don't care if they're in another country. Get them there in 20 minutes. Tell them the owner is coming. And tell them. He squeezed Maya's hand. Tell them the star has finally arrived. Maya squeezed back. Julian, she whispered, I haven't sung on a stage in... I never have. I'm just a subway singer. Not anymore, Julian said, signaling the driver to move. As the car pulled away from the curb, leaving the subway station behind forever, Julian leaned close to her ear. Tonight, you're not singing for pennies, Maya. Tonight, you're going to sing for the boy who left you behind. And you're going to break his heart all over again. He sat back, watching the city lights blur past. He had found her, but looking at her frail hands and the exhaustion etched into her face, he knew the hard part wasn't finding her. The hard part would be fixing the 20 years of damage he had allowed to happen. He had the money. He had the power. But as he looked at the woman shivering in his coat, he wondered if money could fix a soul that had been waiting in the dark for 2 decades. Tell me, Maya whispered, breaking the silence. Tell me what the car looks like. Is it blue? You always liked blue. Julian smiled through his tears. It's black, Maya. But for you, I'll paint it blue by morning. The drive to the concert hall was a blur of city lights and heavy silence. Maya sat perfectly still in the leather seat, her hands folded in her lap, gripping the torn blue tie as if it were a lifeline. She didn't speak. She just breathed, inhaling the scent of the car, the scent of safety. Julian watched her from the corner of his eye. He saw the way she flinched when the car went over a bump, the way she kept touching the heated window glass with disbelief. Every flinch was a dagger in his chest. He had billions in the bank, he could buy countries, but he couldn't buy back the 20 years she had spent freezing in the dark. "You're quiet," Julian said softly, breaking the silence. Maya turned her head toward his voice. "I'm afraid to talk," she whispered. "I'm afraid I'll wake up and be back on a crate. I have this dream sometimes. I dream you come back, but then the train screeches, and I wake up and my pockets are empty." Julian reached across the console and took her hand. His grip was firm, grounding. "This isn't a dream, Maya. Feel that? That's my pulse. Dreams don't have heartbeats." She squeezed his hand back, her rough, callous thumb tracing his knuckles. "You grew up," she said, a note of wonder in her voice. "Your hands, they're so big now. Strong. You used to have soft hands. Piano hands." "I stopped playing," Julian admitted, his voice rough. "After I left New York, I never touched a piano again. I couldn't. Music was us. Without you, it was just noise." Maya lowered her head. "I never stopped singing. It was the only way I could keep you alive in my head. I thought, if I sing loud enough, maybe the wind will carry it to wherever he is." The car slowed. They had arrived. The Thorn Concert Hall rose from the pavement like a mountain of glass and steel. It was unfinished, surrounded by construction fences and scaffolding, but the main structure was complete. It was magnificent. It was the jewel of the city, a billion-dollar project that the press had called Julian Thorne's Vanity Project. They didn't know it wasn't vanity. It was a shrine. Cole opened the door. The cold night air rushed in, smelling of wet concrete and sawdust. Julian helped Maya out. She stumbled slightly, her legs weak from shock and malnutrition. He caught her, pulling her against his side. "I've got you," he murmured. "I won't let you fall." "Where are we?" Maya asked, listening to the echoes of the street. "It sounds big. Open. Look up," Julian said, then caught himself. Lift your head. Feel the space." He guided her past the confused security guards, past the construction signs that read danger, hard hat area. He swiped his key card, and the massive glass doors hissed open. They walked into the lobby. It was cavernous. Their footsteps echoed on the unfinished marble floors. Click, 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 a sharp, lonely sound. "It echoes like a canyon," Maya whispered, clutching his arm. "We're almost there," Julian said. He led her through the lobby, down the long velvet-lined corridor that led to the main auditorium. He pushed open the double doors. The smell hit them first. New cedar, velvet, fresh paint, and that specific electric silence that only exists in a great theater. They stood at the back of the auditorium. It was a monster of a room, 5,000 seats, rising in tiers toward a domed ceiling painted with gold leaf. The stage was miles away, a vast expanse of polished black wood. "Julian," Maya's voice trembled. "It feels immense." 5,000 seats, Julian said, his voice echoing in the darkness. Acoustics designed by the best engineers in Japan. Walls lined with acoustic silk. He turned to her. "I designed the curvature of the ceiling based on the shape of that subway tunnel. Did you know that? I wanted it to sound the same way." Maya gasped. "You built this based on the tunnel?" "I built this whole thing for you," Julian said. "Every inch." Suddenly, the house lights flickered on. A bank of blinding white LEDs flooded the room. Workers, roused from their sleep, were scrambling in the tech booth high above. A voice crackled over the intercom. "Mr. Thorne? We weren't expecting. The sound system isn't calibrated yet. We need 2 hours to leave it," Julian shouted toward the booth, his voice booming without a microphone. "Cut the amps. We don't need them." Turn off the work lights. Give me a single spot. Center stage. Now. The workers scrambled. The house lights died. The room plunged into darkness. Then a single, brilliant beam of pure white light stabbed down from the ceiling, hitting the center of the stage. A circle of light in a sea of black. "Come," Julian said. He led Maya down the center aisle. She walked hesitantly, her hand gripping his tightly. They climbed the stairs to the stage. The wood under their feet was solid, expensive, resonant. They walked until they were standing in that circle of light. Maya shivered. She couldn't see the light, but she could feel the heat of it on her skin. She could feel the pressure of the empty room staring at her. "Julian, I can't," she panicked, pulling back. "I'm dirty. Look at me. I'm wearing a beggar's coat. I haven't washed my hair in days. This place, it's for opera stars. It's for princesses. It's not for the subway girl." Julian stepped in front of her. He took her face in his hands, forcing her to look up toward the darkness where the audience would be. "You listen to me," he commanded, his voice fierce. "This building is just concrete and wood. It's dead. It's worth nothing until you open your mouth. You're the royalty here, Maya. You think I care about the coat? I'd burn every tuxedo in this city just to hear you hum." He stepped back, leaving her alone in the spotlight. "Sing," he whispered. "Sing the song you sang for the travelers. But this time, sing it for us, for the boy and the girl who survived the winter." Maya stood alone. She looked tiny in the vast space. The gray coat swallowed her. Her hair was messy. She looked like a smudge of dirt on a diamond. She stood frozen, her chest heaving. The silence stretched out, heavy and terrifying. Julian held his breath in the wings. Had he pushed her too far? Had he broken her? Then Maya closed her eyes. She reached down and touched the frayed blue tie on her cane. She took a deep breath, inhaling the smell of the new cedar stage. She tilted her head back. She opened her mouth. The first note was shaky, a little rough, but the acoustics of the hall grabbed it, polished it, and sent it soaring into the rafters. Maya heard her own voice come back to her, clear and loud, amplified by the architecture Julian had built for her. She smiled, a real smile. She took a step forward, and then she sang. She poured 20 years of pain into the air. She sang about the cold. She sang about the hunger. She sang about the footsteps of strangers who never stopped. But mostly, she sang about the promise of a sparrow. Her voice grew louder, shedding the rasp, turning into a weapon of pure emotion. It filled the cavernous hall. It rattled the glass in the lobby. It was a voice that didn't belong to a beggar. It belonged to a queen. Up in the tech booth, the tired workers stopped complaining. They stood at the glass, mouths open, staring down at the tiny figure in the gray coat. In the wings, Julian Thorne, the man who never cried, the man who fired people for fun, slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. He buried his face in his hands and wept. He wept for the lost years. He wept for the beauty he had almost missed. Maya finished the song on a high, sustained note that seemed to hang in the air for eternity. Then silence. Absolute, ringing silence. She stood panting, waiting for the subway noise, waiting for the insults. Instead, she heard a sound she had never heard before. It started with one person, Julian, walking onto the stage, clapping. A slow, rhythmic clap. Then, from the tech booth, more clapping. Then the security guards who had snuck in to listen. The sound grew. "Maya," Julian said, his voice thick with emotion as he walked back into the light. He stopped in front of her. "Open your hand." She opened her trembling palm. Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out the wooden bird. He placed it in her hand. "You kept it," she gasped, feeling the broken wing. "I kept it," Julian said. "And now I'm keeping my promise. You're home, Maya. You're finally home." But the story wasn't over. Julian didn't just want her to sing in an empty room. He had one more surprise. He pulled out his phone. He had been live streaming the audio to his network for the last 5 minutes. Maya, he said, checking the screen. Do you know how many people just heard that? 10, she asked. The workers. 2 million, Julian said. I broadcast it to every digital billboard in Times Square, to every radio station I own. The world just heard you, Maya, and they're going crazy. Maya's knees finally gave out. Julian caught her, holding her up in the spotlight, the two of them alone in the center of the universe he had built for her. What do we do now? She whispered, terrified and exhilarated. Julian kissed her forehead. Now we get you a blue dress, and we get ready for opening night. The live stream didn't just break the internet, it shattered it. By morning, the hashtag the subway sparrow was trending in 40 countries. People didn't care about Julian Thorne's billions anymore. They cared about the girl in the gray coat who sounded like an angel. The press camped out in front of the concert hall. Record labels that Julian didn't own were calling, begging for a meeting. But Julian ignored them all. He locked the doors of the Thorne concert hall. For the next 3 days, it was just him, Maya, and a team of the best doctors and designers in New York. Julian brought in a specialist to look at her eyes. Can she see again? Julian asked, ready to write a check for any amount. The doctor shook his head. The damage is permanent, Mr. Thorne. She will never see the world. Julian felt his heart sink, but Maya reached out and touched his face. I don't need to see the world, Julian, she whispered. I can hear it. And for the first time in 20 years, it sounds beautiful. Then came the dress. Julian didn't send a stylist. He went himself. He remembered the promise he made when he was 10. A dress made of silk, not patches. He found it in a small atelier in Paris and had it flown in overnight. It was midnight blue, the color of the sky he used to describe to her when they sat on the subway floor. When Maya put it on, running her hands over the cool, flowing fabric, she cried. Not because it was expensive, but because it felt like dignity. Opening night arrived. The city was electric. 5,000 tickets sold out in 3 minutes. The paparazzi lined the red carpet, screaming for Julian Thorne. But when the limousine pulled up, Julian didn't step out alone. He walked around to the passenger side and opened the door. The cameras flashed, a blinding storm of light. Julian helped Maya out. She wasn't hiding behind dark glasses anymore. She stood tall, her hand on his arm, wearing the midnight blue gown. She looked regal. She looked invincible. They walked into the hall. The murmur of 5,000 people turned into a hushed silence as the lights went down. Julian walked onto the stage alone. He stood in the center. No notes, just a man stripped of his armor. 20 years ago, Julian began, his voice echoing in the darkness. I met a girl who saved my life with a song. I promised her I'd build her a stage. I thought I was building it for her. He paused, looking toward the wings. But I realized this week, I built it for us, because a voice like hers shouldn't be hidden in the dark. He stepped back. Ladies and gentlemen, Maya. Maya walked out. She didn't use her cane. She counted the steps Julian had practiced with her. 12 steps to the mic. She stopped perfectly in the center. The spotlight hit her. She looked radiant. She took a deep breath, clutching the microphone stand. In her other hand, hidden in the folds of her blue dress, she held the wooden bird. She sang. It wasn't just a song. It was a resurrection. She sang the Traveler's Lullaby, but this time, accompanied by a full orchestra that Julian had hired to follow her lead. The music swelled, filling every corner of the room, vibrating in the chests of the audience. People in the front row were weeping. Even Marcus, the cynical business partner, wiped a tear from his eye. When she finished, the silence lasted for 1 second. Then, the room exploded. 5,000 people stood up as one. The applause was like thunder. It went on for 5 minutes. Maya stood there, letting the sound wash over her, a smile breaking across her face that was brighter than the spotlight. Julian walked back onto the stage. He didn't wave to the crowd. He walked straight to Maya. He took her hand and raised it high. She turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "Do you hear that?" she shouted over the noise. "It sounds like the ocean." "It's not the ocean," Julian shouted back. "It's love, Maya. It's all for you." Epilogue. 1 year later, the Thorn Concert Hall is now the most famous venue in the world. But it's not known for its architecture. It's known for its star. Maya is no longer the subway ghost. She is a platinum-selling artist, but she refuses to tour. She sings only here in the house Julian built. Julian is still a billionaire, but he's different now. The silence in his penthouse is gone. It's filled with music. He married Maya 6 months after the opening night. They didn't have a big wedding. They went back to the 149th Street subway station after hours. They stood on the spot where the crate used to be, and they exchanged vows. Julian keeps the wooden bird on his desk, right next to the billion-dollar contracts. It reminds him of the most important deal he ever made. If you think Julian did the right thing, hit the like button. And remember, true wealth isn't what you have in your bank account. It's who you have by your side when the world goes dark. Never break a promise to someone who believed in you when you were nothing. Because sometimes the person you save is actually saving you.